year or more, we have seen a number of new inspiring technology innovations, and the human creativity and how we cope up with this environment has come out very, very clearly. Lakshmi touched upon the whole pharmaceutical industry and how the COVID vaccines have been developed in a record time without compromising safety. I think it's a feat in the history of vaccine immunology. I think it reinforces or reinstates the power of our human resourcefulness. I think we, in the last year or so, we have brought about behavioral changes in people's lives. And people spoke about that with regard to virtual meetings, to virtual schooling, from telemedicine to online shopping of essentials, to online fitness programs, which mean all aspects of everyday life has gone online. I think there is a renewed awareness of the power of digital technologies and an accelerated digital adoption across the various industries, whether it's education, whether it's manufacturing, logistics or supply chain or healthcare. I think the technology has also enabled companies to ensure protection of workers' health, contactless product accessibility and delivery, quality and inventory tracking during lights out operations, and automated quality checks without any physical touch. I think the shift has also happened from global economies to local economies and industries. And we are trying to move the global supply chains closer to the customers or consumers. So the shift in the consumer and market landscape is the imperative for manufacturing companies to essentially diversify and adopt the agile production and delivery models using available technologies to become flexible and adaptable as the new technologies hit you. I think at the core of it all, a shift has been initiated in our economic models, where the focus is growing a large in human health and sustainable living. And the manufacturing industry has a very, very critical role to play, because that is where the skill development also dovetails. I think we have seen in the last 50 years advances in electronics, communication and computing technologies. But today, new digital technologies like AI, machine learning, 3D printing, AR and VR, big data, and the Internet of Things are playing a major role in defining or redefining our lives. And that is leading to very, very new business models. I think as we enter the early stages of the new industrial revolution, they have the power to augment the human capabilities, where we are bringing both the virtual and the physical and the biological worlds together. It will not be a future of technology versus humans, but how technology is integrated with the humans is the one we need to understand. I think if we look at our analogy in our own personal lives, in the physical world and our online lives, on different social media platforms, our online presence and our physical presence are not mutually exclusive, but complementary and have a point of convergence. I think the same way our physical manufacturing units will have a digital copy where the physical manufacturing units will generate real products and the digital units will generate huge amounts of historical and real-time data. That's the world we are in. The data that's generated, we will be able to create endless possibilities, both for the manufacturing companies and for consumers enabling smart manufacturing. And that's the feedback loop or a circular way of looking at things. More data will convert to more efficient manufacturing systems with less wastages and better production quality. I think digitally enabled smart manufacturing will also allow companies to redefine their business models, bringing customer centric to the core. the dynamics of the pharmaceutical industry globally, they have to de-risk the worldwide R&D efforts, improve their speed to market, and overcome their limitations of in-house production by outsourcing their drug manufacturing requirements to countries like India and China. The whole area of generic medicines, India is one of the largest producers and a provider of generic medicines, and we almost contribute 20% to the global supply of generic medicines by volume, and we are often referred to as the pharmacy of the world. We are the source of 60,000 generic brands across 60 therapeutic categories and manufactures more than 500 active pharmaceutical ingredients. The Indian API industry is ranked third largest in the world, and the value of the Indian pharmaceutical export stands at about 19 billion in the year 2019-20. When you look at the global industry itself, it's almost a 1.3 trillion, with the generics contributing to about $270 billion. In spite of all of this, the share of India in the global pharmaceutical value chain is at an insignificant 3%. So given the potential in the generics and the biosimilars market segment, we need to build a very, very strong manufacturing ecosystem, and a back-end supply chain is absolutely a necessity and a need. So we need to understand that the pharmaceutical and drug manufacturing sector, like Lakshmi, you mentioned, is a very, very strategic sector for the country's economic growth. While the government is looking at it in terms of the incentives, there are some reports and recommendations made by Deloitte to the government. Also, there was a very, very seminal paper on the essential medicines and India's road to API independence, because our dependency on China is so much, and there are at least 58 medicines which are completely dependent on imports from China in terms of the APIs, of which 28 are the most critical ones. So this paper describes how do you reduce this dependency and to build the API capabilities at scale across multiple sectors or multiple zones, and what are the enablers that will make it happen. And those recommendations, hopefully the government should look at it and incorporate. But when you look at the fate of fermentation-based APIs plants in India, almost every single one of them which were doing penicillin to as ascorbic acid, and there are about 20 of them, whether it was the Alembics or the Sarabais or the IDPL or the Pfizer or Lupin, Hindustan Antibiotics, they have all completely closed down and stopped production. How do we revive these, which is very, very necessary? Why does China succeed in this, where the government will support the technology innovation, the supporting industries and raw material industry, then they had the suitable land reforms, favorable labor cost, lower utility cost, and the scale of operation. These were the enablers which made it possible, and the governmental support was absolutely the critical one. I think the recommendations and what this paper comes out with, multiple people from different disciplines get together, saying that if 67% of all our pharma imports is from China, how do you diversify the supply chain is one solution. Essential medicines, 80 to 100% are dependent on imports from China. What are the policies for domestic manufacture of critical and essential medicines? And a heavy environmental cost in pharma manufacturing, how do you encourage policies for innovation in efficient and green technology, which is absolutely critical? And of course, IT solutions for real-time medicines at the local level. These are some of the recommendations which are absolutely necessary. This has to take off. And they come up with the short-term, long-term, and medium-term recommendations, which I hope things will be looked at. I think the Indian companies or India as a country needs to look at a robust network of pharmaceutical and drug manufacturing capabilities, and the talent pool to establish leadership in the discovery and manufacturing of new drug molecules is essential. We need to move forward from the imports to how we create these capabilities. The other example I wanted to say was the success story of the IIT Kanpur incubated startup, Nokark Robotics, which developed in the very short time high quality ventilators during the COVID lockdown, and shows the potential of India's healthcare equipment manufacturing. From concept to production to delivery, and the scale production happened. So the modern technologies such as IoT, automation, AI, and machine learning, AR, VR are already helping manufacturers reduce human intervention, increasing plant productivity, improving speed of operations, more importantly, minimizing the errors and the cost of production and rendering a competitive advantage. I think when you look at the pharmaceutical industry, again, different formats are used for different processes in a manufacturing plant. The data access and interpretations pose a significant challenge for efficient communication. I think if you look at several top drug companies, manufacturing companies are increasingly adopting the IoT technologies in their manufacturing plans to standardize the processes, improve communication and efficiency, in the process improving the production quality and access to real-time data and gain visibility of operations. The whole idea is to have visibility of operations and minimizing the errors, where the AR, VR technology solutions are being used for quality checks to ensure absolute adherence to the safety standards. The risks involved in this sector are extremely high, where the consequence of mistake can damage the entire product development cycle and the brand reputation. So large manufacturers do audit their suppliers and contractors to ensure they follow the best practices for manufacturing. Now coming to the 3D printing, this has a tremendous promise for orphan drugs, which are designed to treat rare diseases, some of which are not developed by the pharmaceutical industry due to economic reasons. That is where the 3D printing is also being applied to medical device and surgical equipment manufacturing. The AI and machine learning are being applied to nearly every aspect of the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry to enhance the R&D, from designing and identifying new molecules to measure quality controls to target-based drug validation and discoveries. Not only are we reducing the amount of time to take to trial a product to be conducted, we're essentially speeding up the approval process, which implies that a drug can be taken to the market in a very, very significantly less time. Time compression is what I'm talking about. I think this leads us to more treatment options and more affordable therapies. The use of big data and analytics will play a critical role in effective distribution and administration of drugs. Assessment of patient requirements, analysis of medical data can help to customize the drug development process to maximize the drug benefit. Equally important is the need to track and ensure that the drug supply chain is functioning at its optimal level so that there's no impact on drug quality, which can be achieved through real-time cloud-based data processing. Another new emerging area is the synthetic biology, where we integrate biological systems with digital technologies to discover or create novel therapeutics and natural drugs. The recent example, OpenCell, a SynBio company, has used SynBio concepts to develop container-based laboratory for automated RT-qPCR COVID testing. I think the pharma companies have woken up that the implementation of the modern technologies to different aspects of drug manufacturing, overall productivity improvements, profitability, and resilience will come to fruition. I think the companies aiming to stay relevant in the ever-competitive pharmaceuticals and healthcare market cannot afford to ignore the positive influence in each of these technologies, but they are equally relevant for other manufacturing sectors. I think the technologies have gained immense competitive advantage in terms of speed to market, customer-centric collaborative business models, service effectiveness, flexibility, zero error production, and of course, increased efficiency. I think TCS has launched one IoT business framework called Bringing Life to Things, which enables companies to chart a clear path to successfully scale up to the Industry 4.0 enabled solution to achieve significant operational and financial sectors. Touching upon the MSME sector, which has been lagging behind its counterparts in the global scene because of the technology adoption. Some of the major barriers to technology adoption in this community include apprehensions about the return on investment from technology adoption, lack of awareness about technological benefits, high cost of technology adoption, lack of skilled labor and infrastructure, which I'll keep reinforcing, concerns over reliability of infrastructure, and doubts about privacy and data security, and so on. But since MSME sector is the largest one next to the agricultural sector, the size and makes up almost 9% of India's GDP and 40% of its export, faster and extensive adoption of technology will play a critical role in helping MSMEs to win and succeed in India and globally. And conscious efforts need to be made in that direction, including the skill upgradation, the credit access, and enabling them in a behavioral change, which is very, very necessary. Making affordable technology solutions more accessible to end users through microcredits or easy financing options such as pay-as-you-go or installment plans, focusing on campaigns that leverage case studies around the return on investment. There are ways to do it, including skilling, like I said, to address the skill gaps and other innovative ways that should be brought and implemented on an urgent basis. I think as we move to smart manufacturing and adoption of technologies, the threat landscape also changes. I think its inherent technological basis increases the possibility of cyber attacks, and hence cybersecurity becomes a matter of utmost importance. Industrial connectivity will require mechanisms that ensure integrity of command and operational data, and essentially the components that produce and receive this data. So enterprise-level security frameworks are to be set up to secure connected devices and infrastructures. Strategies and advisory must be developed to ensure adherence to personal privacy protection, as well as industry-specific data management solutions. I think while the US, Europe, and East Asia have dominated the global manufacturing world, and they are making investments in green technologies, automation, to take the manufacturing to a different level. I think we have that opportunity to upskill our youth in modern technologies so that the Atmanirbhar Bharat becomes more than a dream. And when you look at states like Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Delhi government, Karnataka, Bihar, Odisha, they are investing a lot in the skills environment. And it's no longer a discussion about whether technology will replace humans or not, like I said, but it has to be about how humans can collaborate with emerging technologies to build a future where human health and safety and the environment's well-being are at the forefront. While the complexity, utility, and application of technologies are changing, the purpose of its development remains the same: to solve real-world problems, fulfill human needs and aspirations, and present new opportunities. And that is where the NEP 2020 or the new education needs to be redefined. The focus has to move towards solving real-world problems using technologies. All the business leaders, technology innovators, the government, the academia, and the community partners need to come together to shape the future of education and employment.